If Bethany and Dylan were not home during the time of the crimes, then that would make total sense. That would clear up a lot of the confusion. But it would also directly contradict what law enforcement stated in the PCA. Now, on the other hand, if the roommates are home during the time that the crimes were being committed, then it defies logic as to why they would not call 911. Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today I want to talk a little bit about something that I've talked about quite a bit already. I want to talk about the 8-hour delay in which it took to call 911. And I want to talk about Bethany and Dylan, who are the two surviving roommates in these Idaho 4 crimes at 1122 King Road. Now, I know that we've talked about Bethany and Dylan, and we've talked about the 8-hour time gap that it took in order to call 911. But today I want to approach this from a little bit of a different angle. From the very beginning, when I very first started researching these Idaho 4 crimes, I've been consistently trying to find some sort of common sense explanation as to why Bethany and Dylan did not call 911. Whenever I'm researching crimes, I always try to keep in mind that these are real people with real lives. You know, these people have real families and real friends. These people were just living their lives before these crimes occurred. I always try to keep that in mind. So I've tried to rationalize why Bethany and Dylan would not call 911. Because, as I've said in previous videos, I really don't believe that Dylan and Bethany were part of these crimes. I do believe that it's very possible that they became indirectly involved after these crimes occurred. But I've been trying to rationalize why they would not call 911. That's one of the biggest mysteries of this crime, and that's what draws a lot of people to these Idaho 4 crimes. Now, Bethany and Dylan not being at the house when these crimes occurred would directly contradict law enforcement and the PCA, because in the PCA, it is stated that Bethany was on the ground floor and Dylan was on the second level. Now, I know, and anyone who's been following these crimes knows that when this was first reported, it was reported by family members of the victims as well as the media that these two roommates who were left alive in this house were on the ground floor. It was stated that they were on the ground floor. Now, when the PCA came out, Dylan had moved up to the second level, back to her bedroom, and Bethany was then on the ground floor. So that's always kind of confused me about why did they start off on the ground floor and then Dylan moves up to the second level. Now, if you really think about it, if Dylan was still on the ground floor with Bethany, there would be no eyewitness. There would be nobody who saw this intruder walk through the house, and there would be no description of this intruder because there would be no eyewitness, because Dylan would have been on the ground floor. Now, there's a lot of reasons why someone would not call 911, but those reasons are all bad. There's really no good explanation for not calling 911. But I want to try to rationalize the possibility that Bethany and Dylan were not inside the house when these crimes occurred. Now, it's very possible that maybe a fight broke out inside the house. And Dylan originally stated that she originally went to bed in her bedroom on the second level. Now, is it possible that Dylan did begin on the second level in her bedroom? And then a fight broke out on the second level, and Dylan became frightened. And when she had the opportunity, she moved down to the first level. Now, it's very possible that Bethany and Dylan didn't want to be a part of this big fight that was happening inside the house. And it's also very possible that it was beginning to escalate. So maybe Bethany and Dylan left and fled the house. I don't believe that Bethany and Dylan could have ever even imagined that these crimes would have happened to their roommates. But maybe they realized that there was a big fight happening in this house. And maybe they realized that it was escalating and they wanted to get away from the situation. So, what if Dylan and Bethany left the house and fled the situation? Possibly even leaving the front door open as they left so that they didn't make any noise when they closed it. Because we know that at 8:30 the following morning, at 8:30 on the morning of November the 13th, when these crimes occurred, we know that neighbors reported that the front door was wide open at 8:30 in the morning. Neighbors reported that that front door was wide open at 8:30 in the morning. So is it possible that Bethany and Dylan left the house and left the front door wide open when they left because they were in a hurry to flee the situation, and then didn't come back until later on that morning to find the crime scene? Because it would make more sense that they came back to the house later that morning and realized that these heinous crimes had occurred. And, they were in the house when law enforcement got there. Now, if they weren't in the house while these crimes were being committed, that would directly contradict law enforcement. Because Dylan made a statement that she was on the second level and that she was in the house while these crimes were being committed. She gave a description of the intruder. So, if they weren't in the house, then that would directly contradict that. Because then there would be no eyewitness. Dylan wouldn't have been in her room to witness the intruder. So it's very strange, because on one hand, it would make a lot of sense that the other two roommates were not in the house during the time of the crimes and came back to the house later that morning. That would clear up a lot of confusion, and that would make a lot of sense. But again, it would contradict the PCA. and it would contradict if they weren't in the house, there would be no eyewitness. If Dylan was never on the second level, there would be no eyewitness. So to me, this would be the only common sense explanation that I can think of, would be that these two roommates were not at home during the time of the crimes. Because why else wouldn't you call 911? That's the part that just doesn't make sense. Now, I have another theory about this 8-hour gap in time and, this 8-hour delay in calling 911. And I'm going to share that in another video. But I wanted to talk about this angle. Because in the very beginning, that was what I thought was it would make more sense that these two roommates would not be home and would not have returned to the house until later that morning. I'm really just trying to find a common sense explanation for this 8-hour delay in calling 911 because, like I said, these are college kids. And I realize that they're not kids. These are young adults. But to me, these are college kids. These kids are only a few years away from being teenagers. They were teenagers just a few years ago. So in my heart, I want to believe that Bethany and Dylan had nothing to do with these crimes and possibly panicked. It would make total sense that these two roommates would panic. None of us know how we would react in this situation. I think the majority of us would have called 911 immediately. But if they weren't home, they wouldn't have known what was going on. And I can't imagine that in their wildest imagination that they would believe that this was happening, that the crimes that occurred at 1122 King Road were happening. So I feel like this is a possible explanation. Yeah, it contradicts law enforcement's, the affidavit, but it would make more sense that they weren't home. Tell me what you think. And, let me know what you think about the possibility about Dylan and Bethany not being home while these crimes were being committed. So please stay tuned for my next video. As I said, I have another theory about that 8-hour delay in calling 911. And I'm going to do a video talking about my other theory. It's a little different than this theory. But to me, it would make total sense that these two roommates were not home at the time that these crimes occurred. Please like and please subscribe to my channel if you like my content. I really appreciate everybody who subscribes to my channel and everybody who interacts with my channel. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.